There still aren't a lot of blacks in charge, just because there aren't a lot of blacks on job sites. So you have to be able to work with people of all races. And I think you have to be a really good communicator and not carry a chip on your shoulder when you're coming upon a job. You have to come in, listen, that you're going to make it happen. Now, unfortunately, sometimes some things may be out of your control. You might be dealing with somebody that has something, I don't know what, against you that's unfortunately in control of your destiny, or not necessarily your destiny, but in control of you being on that job or what you get, you know what I mean? But hopefully, with hard work, I think you can get through that. At least that's the way I was able to do it.
And for the most part, there isn't any sort of type of racial animosity or...
No, the good thing is, because it's a union, and I won't say there isn't any, but I think that because you have representation and you can go to someone to be able to basically take that head on, I think that, and you have representation, you can call down to the hall and get somebody to come out and say, there's something not right here, because every single job has a representative that someone covers it, and if anyone calls on a job, they always get a person out there to go and do an investigation of any kind. Not it doesn't have to be after you've been fired. It's if you're there, you know what I mean, to make sure. That's what union representation is about, to make sure that there's harmony between, first of all, the labor, and then to make sure there's harmony between labor and contractor, because it's a partnership. The union is about, it's not just a union and we work for these contractors and we don't like them. No, we are in partnership with the contractor, a team to make it work. We collectively bargain together. The contracts are decided between both parties. So we're tied together. So their success is our success. And if they're not successful, we aren't successful. So definitely make sure that they understand the relationship, that this is your team and you have to make it work. And some people have to be re-educated, on if they're in management too long and they don't treat the men the way they should. I always thought, as I was a foreman, that you could get a lot more out of someone if you showed them that you cared about them. If you showed them that this is your project as well as it's mine. Because I'm running it does not mean that you're more important than I am. Because I have you, I need you. So I think if you show that, the people that don't get it, you can move them along. But I guarantee you, the lion's share of people, probably 85–90% of the people, get if a person, truly looks out for them and cares about them and has made them a team member. I think you get miles more out of it than running someone in fear and not treating them well. I just don't think that's a good work environment.
How has the Black Minority Caucus helped you in your, throughout your experiences?
I think they've been extremely instrumental in giving me the big picture and mentoring me as a leader, and in mentoring me throughout the IBW, throughout my career there. When I first got into the IBW, after a couple of years, after a year or so, I was asked to be on the Apprentice Student Council, and I was just naturally, everybody said, "Hey, Shomari, you go," because they didn't want to go. But I'm naturally want to get involved with things, and I said, well, I can't complain about something if I don't, know what it's about, and I've actually done some research and make some decisions. You can't complain about it if you don't know about it. So I think that's probably how I got the position I'm in now, because of being on the Apprentice Student Council, meeting and working with the people that are the decision makers within our union. I've been working with them since I was an apprentice, and then when I was at my graduation, the assistant business manager said, "Hey, I like the way you speak. Keep staying involved." And so after that, I kept involved. I went from a journeyman. Right when I became a journeyman, they asked me to be on what's called an apprentice subcommittee. It's a disciplinary committee because our programs are state licensed and state funded, there's a certain curriculum and a certain amount of hours, and there's standards that we have to follow. So if within our apprenticeship, if you're a person that gets fired or you don't go to classes because you can't have absences in your classes, you have to make up the classes. You can only have so many, and after that you get docked. Either you get disciplinary, you have to come before a committee if you're not going to class, or if you're getting fired. Whenever you get fired as an apprentice, you have to come before the subcommittee, which sits of labor and management, and they basically ask you what's going on. So they asked me to be on that subcommittee when I became a journeyman. So I've been on there for probably about 5 or 6 years. And then from there I became a foreman. One of the contractors who was sitting on the side of management said, "Hey, I like the way you handle yourself." He never worked with me before. He said, "I'd like you to be a foreman on this job. It's actually close to your home." So I became a foreman on a hospital through the relationship just with working on that apprentice subcommittee. And then from that, because I was every month, I meet with all the decision makers at our union on the labor side and on the management side. I think they saw an opportunity. Opportunity was presented to me to become a business agent within the organization, and I jumped at the chance just because I love. First of all, I love people. I like to set. It's great to set policy or to even govern policy. I like politics. We do a lot of political organizing within our organization, because it's the only way that we're going to be able to survive is if we work with the people that run the city in which we're trying to work in. And that's how I am where I am today. And then getting into the EWFC, there are a lot of people in the Electrical Workers Minority Caucus that are decision makers within our union. Our president is the treasurer of our union. And he was really the one who was probably responsible for getting me the position that I have today, getting me hired on staff. And he's just kept that going through. Eric Brown just kept that going through and mentoring me throughout my career. It's going on my 4th year.
So for your union, or I guess for your trade, there's a lot of big emphasis on like working local, in terms of like if the project is in Compton, like you're going to get workers from Compton.
Yeah. Well, here's what's really taking that's really happening in the Los Angeles area and the surrounding areas, Los Angeles County. We have project labor agreements, which are labor agreements that can either be project specific or they can be department specific. So if we have a project right now, we're trying to work on a project labor agreement with the city of Compton on some public work that they're doing right now. Every project labor agreement, the only reason why any city actually agrees to a project labor agreement is, number one, is because you can get skilled labor. But more importantly for any city is there's a local hire component on the city, which means there's so many people that live in that area. 30% is usually been the earmark. 30% of all the workers that work on that project are going to be residents of that city or the surrounding cities. If it's LA City, it's certain zip codes of LA City, so that the money can be recycled back into the city, because it's all public funds. So previously in many years, cities have given money to contractors, and you've got contractors coming from Arizona or wherever. They come in there, they work, none of them live there, and they all take the money back to the state in which they came from. It's all prevailing wage and public funds and taxed money. Why not have it recycled, especially if you can control that, have the money recycle and cycle back into the city of the people that actually the taxes came from. It only makes sense. It empowers the city, it recycles dollars, and it helps the city, of course, actually use the funds that they're disseminating to contractors. So we have people that live in Los Angeles County, workers that live in, we're almost 8,000 electricians. So, and that's just one, we're just one trade, and about 13 to 25 trades. So we always, if there's a project labor agreement on any city, whether it's LA City, Compton, San Gabriel Valley, Pasadena, there's a local hire component with on that project, if it's a project labor agreement. And then we always get 30% of the workers that live in that area. And then we also have an opportunity to get people who live in those areas who are trying to get into the union, depending on the need and the size of the project.
So the trade is very good about meeting those requirements and everything.
We have to meet them. And it's not, before they used to say, hey, just make an effort and try to make it happen. No, because they found that when you just try to make an effort, it doesn't happen. They'll tell you, a contractor will tell you, oh, I tried to, we really tried. No, you put a monetary penalty that if you don't make those, this is what happens. And that's why it happens, is because they hold contractors accountable. And because of that, we've been very successful. LAUSD, which has been the largest project labor agreement in the country, it's $20 billion. We are meeting, and they have a 50%. Because LAUSD is so vast, they have 50% of, it used to be 30, it got raised to 50 of local hire. So that because LAUSD is so large, that shouldn't be hard to do for any contract. And they're very, very strict about it because of all the money, of all the work that's happening in LA, most of it is LAUSD. We have to make sure we meet those requirements, and if we don't, they get penalties.
So going back to your apprenticeship, what were some of the more difficult aspects of your apprenticeship, and how were you able to overcome them?
Probably just, I'd say, for me, the most difficult part of it was just the consistency and the grind, I guess, making sure that you were making sure you had, when I went, you had to go 2 nights a week for 4 months, and then probably 2 to 4 Saturdays out of that time period for a semester. So it's just the grind and realizing you are working during the day as well. So you just have to get you have to get a mindset. I never ever thought about ever dropping out. I mean, that wasn't even ever in my vocabulary. And also, never thought of just not passing the semester, because first of all, if you don't pass the semester, you don't get a raise, and you could possibly get kicked out of the program. So just really making your mind up and saying, I think the biggest part is being consistent. You got to be consistent. You have to be where you're supposed to be. That is, and I sit on the committee, so that is really the largest, that's probably the most prevalent problem within the organization is consistency. If you haven't been, and you're talking about really, you're doing 2 programs. You're working, you have to be a good employee, and you're going to school, but you're doing them simultaneously, right? So I think the largest part is you have to be consistent. You have to be where you're supposed to be. And if you're not there, you're going to get called on the carpet. And if you're not there too many times, you're going to be out on the carpet, out of the program. So, and we put people out of the program every month. People that can't make it, you know what I mean? That either they resign or they mess up too many times. And most of it's due to consistency and being where you're supposed to be on a consistent basis. It's a 5-year program, 10 semesters. So I think that you really have to, if you've always never had a problem not showing up places, then you're probably just going to, come here and do the same thing. Or if you've had an issue with really finishing something or being consistent somewhere, this one's going to put you to the test. So, and that's what we do as part of our mentoring while we're tutoring them in the program. We tell them, this is what you're going to be up against. And I mean, quite frankly, some people, it's not going to be anything, they're not going to give it a second thought because they already know they're going to be able to do it. They're hungry enough to do it. And then some people, you're never going to know what their thresholds are until they're put to the test, right? Because our job encompasses, we build anything from hospitals to